Hey everybody, it's Erik co-founder, partner of Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is Venture Stories, a podcast covering topics relating to tech and business with world-leading experts. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Venture Stories by Village Global. I'm here today with Adam Draper, very special guest, friend of the firm, co-founder of Boost VC, the pre-seed fund making sci-fi reality with investments focused on crypto, VR, and other sci-fi. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Erik.
So Adam, this has been long in the making.
I know.
I'm so glad we're doing this. I'm a big fan of your podcast as well. So
yeah, I'm a huge fan. You have figured out how to be incredible at listening and asking questions in a way that I think you are the best.
Oh no, you're too kind.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's wonderful to have you. You have been doing Boost VC since 2013?
2012.
Okay. You were crypto early, VR early.
I was.
So why don't we give sort of a historical overview of how you've seen sort of the space evolve since you started doing it? Like what were VCs saying, early 2012, 2013, 2014, crypto was hot, then it's not hot. How has your sort of like focus evolved as you've seen these spaces evolve?
Yeah. So originally it was Bitcoin. So the entire ecosystem was focused around one token, and it was Bitcoin. And I was very fortunate to have met Brian Armstrong at a coffee shop in Mountain View called Red Rock. Yeah. Have you been there?
I've not been there.
It's a great place.
I need to go to Mountain View more.
I've performed very well from meetings at Red Rock. I highly recommend it. For venture capitalists everywhere, you should do that. But so basically how it's evolved, so I got to meet Brian Armstrong. I thank him so much because what he really did, and it is about Coinbase and my investment in Coinbase, but it's really about he was my gateway to seeing that there was this future global financial world, what he said was at some point the world's going to be on one financial infrastructure. Yeah. And it wasn't like a question. It was just like, this is how the world's going to work. Why isn't it? There's an internet. It connects us communication wise. Why not money? Right. And so that sort of carved out a really great niche for me. It was tiny at the time. So crypto wasn't crypto. It was a small group of people. And what I loved about early crypto is this idealism, activism that they had that was us against the world. And every single person I met in the crypto ecosystem was the most dynamic person. I use the word dynamic because it was like intelligent, excited. It was like a revolutionary vibe. They all were revolutionaries. And you need that in order to jumpstart an ecosystem. So how it's changed, not to fast forward. So Boost VC, we were the first fund to focus on it, Bitcoin, and we've backed 100 companies up till now that are focused in sort of the cryptocurrency.
Did you consider raising a crypto hedge fund during sort of the ICO?
Who didn't? Yes, completely. We definitely considered it. What we realized was that wasn't who we were.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people changing who they were in order to sort of accommodate the influx of capital. And what I think I identified was VCs aren't very good hedge funds, and hedge funds aren't very good VC managers.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
I am definitely through and through sort of long-term thinker, and that has proven correct in crypto, where at the beginning, venture capitalists, they all met with me as they wanted to learn. But none of them were deploying any capital. And I was, you should support the companies. You should do this. And then I'd give my whole spiel on what Bitcoin was. And I realized I educated the market the way that Brian Armstrong educated the market in that first generation. But also as time wore on through 2013 and 2014 and 2015, and not too much changed, the question started to become this very depressing. So is that Bitcoin thing still a thing? And you hear that enough, you start to feel it, and you're like, oh man, is it still a thing? And you're questioning yourself. But we were so committed because of the conviction of our founders that we stayed with it and we kept doing it. In fact, what we should have done was when we felt that, quadruple down.
Yeah.
And we would have been incredibly well off. We ended up being able to participate during that sort of slow period in great companies. Like, we were one of the early checks in Polychain. There were a lot of really, really great, sort of companies that emerged out of the darkness. Yeah. But now what we're going through after this huge pop, and I'm sort of making this assumption that everyone understood that in 2017, there's a huge pop, and then there was a drop. And now we're at this sort of plateau, and people are sort of asking the same questions. They're like, is it still a thing? Like, where's the value? What's the thing? Like, and this is the most fun part for me, is when the market starts to question itself again, because I've already been through it. I know that it'll change again. And it's really about thinking on a long enough timeline. And I know that there will be one network of finance, and that we're sort of right in the middle of old finance figuring out who they are, and new finance eating old finance. And like, there's this weird thing going on, and we don't know where the value is yet.
Well, one thing that people ask is, even the believers say, hey, Bitcoin is going to be huge, but is this a category for venture? Will venture firms be able to outcompete with Bitcoin?
And so that was an early question also, which, to be fair, a lot of those people who just bought Bitcoin did extremely well. Yeah, totally. And so I have always been investing in the entrepreneurs who are building on top of these protocols, because I believe, and I underestimated the timeline, but I believe there's a point at which the entrepreneurs out-innovate the protocol. And so by backing the entrepreneurs, like, you just have a higher growth curve than the protocol, which will continue to grow. And like, I also think crypto is like a reason. One of the things I'm very passionate about is basically anyone having access to investing in venture capital / startups. And crypto is this excuse you can almost use to invest in early stage things. Yeah. And it educated an entire market on like what early stage investment was.
Do you think crypto will disrupt venture capital?
Yeah. I think it is. I think it's already sort of changing the way everyone thinks about it.
Say more. How so?
See, you're good. That's that there. Everyone who's listening right now, that right there, those two words, that is the sign of a truly gifted.
I remember watching an interview with the guy with the startup. What's his name? Alex Bloomberg. And he said, he gave a talk on how to interview, and he said the words that he uses the most is unpack that.
Unpack that. Yeah. So I've watched it. Once you start a podcast, you watch so many people. Yeah. You watch so many people, and unpack that is a very good word. Okay. So venture, basically, all of a sudden in 2017, there were all these early stage ideas that were listing on a platform for investment. And yes, all the VCs were like, you don't know what you own. Like, that element of fear is something you should definitely throw money at. That is old world thinking, worried about like this new emerging technology that no one knows what the answer is yet. And so I think I might not own exactly an equity, but I own something in this value. And what my job is at Boost VC, as an investor, as a runner of an accelerator, is really, it's about investing where the brains are going to be, not where they are right now. So it's about where they're flowing. And all I know is that really, really amazing people are moving towards crypto still. So that's really exciting. And that's really what venture capitalists are always trying to predict, is where the talent is going and where it is right now. And like, if you could always know where it is and where it's going, like, you are going to be the wealthiest person on the planet. Yeah. So I think that it also, on the like, how it's disrupting is, it made everyone on a global scale ask the question, what is money? For a whole generation of people. Like, when I was in college, it was called economics, and it was really boring. But once you put the word crypto on it, it was a new technology. And suddenly it was probably the most popular class in the last 5 years, because no one really knew what the answer was. And it was everyone accepting that there was no right answer about what money is. And that is the reason. Also, economists early on with Bitcoin, they would always be like, oh, I don't think this is a thing. Like, deflationary currency, like, we always worry, like, fear about this. And then all of a sudden there's this flippening that happened where everyone was suddenly, all the economists were on board because they bought some Bitcoin and it went up. Yeah.
So what did they not understand about the deflationary? I actually don't understand that part. What was their argument, and why was it wrong?
Evidently, there's a lot of research that was done on deflationary currencies, but it had never been tested in the real world because you couldn't. Because every single currency that ever existed had either had and it's technically not deflation, it's a fixed amount. But every other global currency, they had the Fed inside of their own countries, and they just printed more cash. So there was always inflation. There was never the opposite of inflation. We were always printing more money on the fear basis that we might not have enough cash to cover something. As of now, we're at a point in time in Bitcoin where I have always believed that it is an amazing store of value. And what the use case is really money that is not in a bank. That's the use case right now. That's not going to be the only use case. There's going to be trust-based applications. There's going to be prediction markets. There are going to be a lot of different avenues. But in general, I think that people keep saying, well, it's not used every day. And anyone who owns a Bitcoin is using it correctly right now. They're using it as their own. This is their money. So
say more about where you're looking or how you make sense of the Bitcoin ecosystem, the Ethereum ecosystem. Are there other ecosystems you're excited about, or what's your sort of request for startups within the current crypto space?
Yeah. So I think we need to get to user adoption phase. And so it's about quick iteration cycles to figure out what people are using, what they use it for. How can you I love my mom, but she wouldn't be the first person to use cryptocurrency. How would you get my mom to use cryptocurrency? That's, I think, the most important question to be asking. And so I'm looking for front end, not protocol DApp end, because I think that the front end will drive the utility of the actual protocols. And that's mostly if you go down our list of what we're looking for. We're looking for passionate communities of excited people. If it's Bitcoin versus everything else, Ethereum, I think of it more, I think different protocols are going to be used for different things. And I don't know what those things are yet because we're still figuring out what the market is allowing for. But I do know that people are using prediction markets consistently.
What are they using it for? Betting.
Gambling. Mostly.
Totally. I'm surprised it's not catching on more. Have you seen startups that you're excited
always about? Ends up being why. You need to ask the question, why should they? Why should a user use it for gambling? And most of it's regulatory arbitrage right now. So it's okay, internationally, I bet most of the users of all of these prediction markets are international because the United States has come down on sort of really what the rules of cryptocurrency are. And that's a lot of friction that the US is dealing with. I actually think a lot of the innovation is going to come externally from the United States because we're dealing with so much regulatory overhead. Early on, a lot of these companies, no one knew what Bitcoin was. No one knew what cryptocurrency was. No one knew. And so they were able to work with the regulators. And I think that Coinbase is a good example of a company that worked very closely with regulators to figure out what the systems should be, how to work, how to do AML, KYC, how to make all that stuff work. So I still think that not enough crypto. I think the difference between a researcher and an entrepreneur is really asking the question, why should they use it? So why should they use it? And getting an answer, discovering the answer for why your user should be using this product. Because I think a lot of people, I don't think there's a debate about the excitement of the blockchain and the excitement of cryptocurrency. I think that maybe there is, but I don't see it that much anymore. I think the question is more around education and what the best use cases are for. Yeah.
Are you seeing anything in gaming? It's still too early.
It's still early. I see a fair amount in gaming. I think mostly, I'm an obsessive collector of sports cards and comic books. And so I connect with the blockchain for games on a childhood level where scarcity that's all the Panini brothers. I don't know if anyone knows about the Panini brothers. It's like a monopoly in the sports card industry. And they say we deliver surprise. Like that's like their thing, because they have different foil cards that are more rare than other cards. And you can do that on the blockchain now. But the cool thing is, what I haven't seen is people getting more creative. I haven't seen, hey, this card, because it's been used 100 times, because you can verifiably prove that it's been used 100 times, is more powerful. Like that's something that we're not seeing. We're not seeing the history.
Totally. I got introduced to my dad at some point. He has 10,000 comic books in his house.
We should just have like a trade.
Totally.
A trade war.
Yeah, yeah. And then one of my favorite novels ever is Cavalier and Clay. It's all about it's all about comic books. Yeah, it's an incredible novel. I want to zoom out a little bit. So you talk about sci-fi in terms of defining the founding thesis. I'm curious which sci-fi has been most inspiring to you, or which science fiction futures are more exciting to you. Maybe conversely, which ones are you less excited about or don't want to live in or trying to prevent?
Yeah. So we use sort of the crypto ecosystem. I'm going to sort of segue into sci-fi because we use the community of the cryptocurrency world that was this passionate, idealist, activist mentality, and we supplanted some sort of entrepreneurship gene into them, and delivered a bunch of pretty amazing companies out of that in the crypto space, Wire and Repio and Keep, and there are amazing protocols and companies that have been built through going through the Boost VC accelerator. And then we realized that this sort of like seeded activist idealism, like this genetic code that's in the raw, talented, excited entrepreneurs in these spaces, it wasn't just about cryptocurrency. Like that is seeded in tons of different technology industries. And so we opened up to virtual reality. We were super early in that space, but we still are super early, evidently. And then the VR, AR, and we ended up saying the one tagline I would always use is, I want to invest in anything that gets me closer to an Iron Man suit. And so what was interesting about that phrase though, is it gave everyone this impression of like what that world looked like just naturally. Everyone had seen Iron Man. So it was like super easy to like articulate, I want AR, VR. I want flying jetpack. I've backed 2 jetpack companies. I want an exoskeleton. I backed an exoskeleton company called Rome Robotics. And so I think of sci-fi tech as a technology that is enabling something that was previously impossible. And so finding the why now in these stories from these founders is probably the most important question that we're trying to figure out every time we're looking through applications. Is like, why now is the time for this idea to occur? It's very clear in like history of companies. Why now for Google was the internet? Why now for Coinbase was Bitcoin? Why now for our jetpack companies is VTOL engines actually became powerful enough to lift individual off. So like having a very clear why now for any story, any presentation is really important, and I find that that's what I really focus on. What worlds do I not want? Okay, here, I'm going to give you my holistic view of the world. I'm going to give you like everything I think about, okay? I believe that we are humans, okay, on a rock hurtling through space, right? And I think that we're designing technologies to bring us closer together. But we have historical technologies that are keeping us apart. And most of those are defined by borders. And so I believe that there's trillions of dollars locked up in these borders that are slowly being poked through with communication lines, with the internet.
And by borders, you mean physical borders?
Physical, actual, like drawn on, like if you look at the globe, there are borders drawn on. And I understand up until now why they have like existed. And I still know why most of them exist. But I believe that we are going through a period of time where we're trying to connect everyone on a playing field. Yeah. So what I'm trying to invest in are things that sort of bring us closer together at scale. And so those technologies, if you look at cryptocurrency, if you look at, blockchain, virtual reality, like all of them are designed to make peer-to-peer value transfer happen or presence. Like we could actually be having this conversation in virtual reality right now. We were just talking about Jonathan Trist from Ludlow. Where I hung out with him the most time was actually in a VR poker game. And we got to know each other. So I think that humans should be working together on the hardest problems. And now there are no barriers to connect ourselves geographically. So how do we get the smartest people working on the hardest problems as fast as possible? And so that's basically my investment thesis. That's what sci-fi is.
Totally. Yeah. Do we think, while we're here, why not? When in Rome, do we think humans are sort of a means to like transhumans?
Okay. These are great questions. How far are we going? Because Arvind Gupta from IndieBio said, he called them, we are currently Homo sapiens, but we're going to evolve to Homo concilio, which means designed humans. And because we can now embed CRISPR into our genetics. There's also, I don't need to go through the long list of different ways that the future can go, I guess. But I've found that to be very fascinating, where I think that if you talk to a human being 50 years ago, they would think that you're a wizard because of how well connected and networked you are with information. But in the next 50 years, we will think they are superheroes because they're stronger, faster, live longer. They're basically like what we would imagine gods to be 200 years ago. And and well connected. I also believe, I'm saying a lot of things I believe humans are good. I think genuinely we're good, and we're trying to expand our knowledge base. And so searching for the things I get obsessed with are the known unknowns. Like, what is money is one of these big questions that I think we're still picking at. Like, there's a whole field of finance that's just like asking that question, a whole field of governance and politics. The ocean is 70% of the planet, and we have only explored 5%. So what's in the other 95%? And that's Earth is a weird name for a planet that's 70% covered in water. Yeah. So I'm fascinated with discovering those things to bring our worlds closer together.
Totally. Let's segue into AR VR.
Love it.
So where are we today? Where is the market today? Where are we looking to invest today? And maybe you could start by giving a brief historical overview of, from 2013 on, how has it sort of evolved? There hasn't been an ICO boom in AR VR, or has there? I mean, maybe Pokemon Go.
I wrote this recently in a tweet. I was like, people are walking around their lives knowing that virtual reality, the promise of actual virtual reality, exists for $400, and they're not freaking the F out.
They're not doing shit. Yeah.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here, working out in VR every night for 15 minutes, being like, it is benefiting my life. Virtual reality is truly delivering on the promise that I believed in. And I think that there have been, with most technologies, there's always 40 years of research. Everyone always talks about the 40 years of research for new technologies. VR has had so many false starts that people won't commit to this time being the time. That's what they're not sure of yet. And so but on the other side, we should be freaking out because, I get, we don't need to be freaking, we should be freaking out. It's awesome. It's incredible. I love VR. And there's so many ways. It's amazing for education. We live in the Matrix. You can have the Matrix. You can literally be in the Matrix. China has actually designed an entire city around virtual reality. They have a VR AR city.
Wow.
How crazy is that? There are 10 million people who live in VR AR city. I forget what it's called. If you go to at Boost VC, the Boost VC podcast, and listen to my interview with Tipitat, he visited the city, and it says VR AR on everything. We should be doubling down because this is the way that we connect with people. This is how we can connect with people without geography. Right. I believe the accidental use case that I wasn't ready for was fitness. So we think of gamers in a specific way right now, behind a controller, behind a mouse pad and a keypad. But now the remote control is your body. And so you can suddenly you can do whatever, and you get a workout.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Wow. So what are the use cases you're excited about, or what's in your request for startups? And
so actually with VR, AR, and with cryptocurrency, it's been very consistent for a very long time, which is for VR, AR, it's training and education.
Yeah.
We have a company.
So job training, simulation.
Simulation. So we have a company called Tribe XR that teaches you to be a DJ, and it's incredible. Like, it's one of the highest rated apps on the Quest because you can actually have sort of a lesson and a tutorial. And I think right now we're in a bridging time period where you will have VR, AR as a supplement to a e-learning class or to create the closeness, like the connection. And then also the killer app of VR is being together. That's it, in different contexts. So if you think about how we hang out, we're hanging out right now in a podcast. You could be hanging out in a pitch session. You could be hanging out at a bar with friends. You could be hanging out on a poker table. And all of those are different. You're in different contexts. And that's a different app. That's a different application of how you're doing this. And so I believe each of those are actually going to be businesses. People are going to bring people together in different contexts to create Ready Player One, or like the metaverse that everyone's been promising.
What do you think is going to be either the iPhone moment or the ICO, what the ICOs were for crypto in terms of like getting everyone really excited about it, or like investing in it because they can't miss out, et cetera?
I think it's always there. One is, how do you build trust is always the question. And that's what creates these swellings of trust. So cryptocurrency, like, the price kept moving and not going away. Yeah. And so suddenly there was enough trust that it sort of flipped on all these traders who were like, wait a second, I'm barely making, 7% a year. Yeah. These people made 7x this year. Wow. I should probably buy. And so, like, as long as the market doesn't go away, you create that trust in the market. I think for virtual reality, it's really about, I think, someone making a ton of money. I think people need to know there's a market. Yeah. And people need to know that it's not going away tomorrow.
Like another Oculus or something.
And with true value. Like, I would say Oculus was, it's an amazing device. And that team built something that was so futuristic that it's taken 6 years to get to the market on what the promise was. We are now there. I think it's going to take a software business being sold for $200 million, not even $1 billion. I think it's just like, you need a big purchase that proves that, hey, this is the bet of more than just Facebook. This is the bet of the market. Yeah. I'm speaking very much as a finance person, but like, I think that, it's show value. It's having a friend say, you need this. Yeah. It's like all of those things.
And do you think it's startups relative to income, like Facebook, Sony, Netflix, Microsoft? It's like, how do you think about incumbents for startups in this space?
So I think startups have an edge right now because all venture capitalists think about is like, can this startup gain distribution faster than the incumbent can innovate? Incumbents aren't innovating much in the VR AR space because they don't believe the market's big enough. I believe the market's going to grow insane in the next year. And so that's really what we're figuring out is like, how can they out distribute the incumbent?
And how do you think about timing? Like, are there things you look at in VR and AR, like, this is just too early, like come back in 2 years? Or how do you sort of get a sense for timing? Is it usage? And, like, how do you?
Yeah, there's sort of becoming a standard, like, language that people are using for this is a good app, this is a bad app. And it's like, are they coming back weekly? It's a good sign because most people don't use VR weekly. So if they're coming back weekly, that's just great. Are they making money? We have companies who are making millions of dollars. That's good for any business.
SaaS businesses?
Yeah, we have SaaS and we have consumer. So we have both sides making in the millions, which is crazy. So I'm sitting here being like, okay, I see everything like working.
Yeah. So I guess VCs need to see.
They need to see it work. So that's for venture capital as a whole. $400 like globally is still an expensive pill to swallow. So if we're expecting to be hanging out with anyone in emerging markets or anything like that, like on the mass adoption scale, it might need to get cheaper. But I don't know. iPhones are everywhere.
Totally. Well, was Pokemon Go a flash in the pan? As in, will we see other mobile AR? Greg Castle came on the podcast last week. He wasn't too excited about mobile AR. He says it's unnatural and that AR itself is like 5 to 10 years behind VR. What's your take on mobile AR?
So I think AR has a harder problem than VR actually. And VR has a hard problem. But I think it's a lot like VR is like the personal computer adoption. Yeah. And AR is like mobile after the personal computer was adopted. So like we need the first thing to get to the second thing. And right now, all these big companies are so excited about it because a lot of things look cool. And entertainment is a great use case for AR today. I think Snapchat's an AR company. Like, I think technically mobile AR works. Like, there are companies that make a lot of money on the fact that they are an AR business. But on the, like, startup scale of the world markets, I think we need persistent AR, and those come with glasses. Yeah. And to get to glasses, it's a higher technical achievement, and it's a habit change. So habit changes, in my experience, are very expensive. Yeah. It just takes time.
So maybe that's going to be the why now for when AR is ready.
That means that I should start investing in AR companies right now. I'm sounding negative. That means that I should be backing them now for in 3-4 years. Like And so I think VR is going to hit this year, but a lot of those investments, I've made 80 VR AR investments.
If Bitcoin was the why now for Coinbase, what's the why now for these for VR AR?
It would have been Oculus. It exists, and the market. You see, it's the overlap. See, the argument would be the overlap of market adoption, there being a certain number. Facebook just said they think that in a couple of years there's going to be 100 million of them. But that's still speculation. Yeah. But it's the bet that you can make a business work until the masses hit.
Yeah. What about the intersection between blockchain and VR or crypto and VR?
The wildest thing is like, when we started investing in virtual reality, we didn't think about any overlap. We were just like, these are cool, separate communities of people who are awesome. The more we look at it and the more we talk to people, the killer app of VR is blockchain, and the killer app of blockchain is virtual reality. Because if you watch that entire Ready Player One movie, have you seen?
No, I read the book though.
Okay, you read the book. Okay, all of those, when there's an item in an open world, there is no way you can actually technically do that without a blockchain, right? Like, you can't have a digital item that there is a scarce number of without a blockchain. And so I was watching that movie and I was like, this is my world. Like, this is the world I'm building. And then I was like, okay, well, I hope they do close on Tuesdays or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But I found more and more that we're building this connected digital world. And those two elements of the technology, the internet was sort of the first layer. Yeah. The blockchain is the payment and trade layer. And virtual reality is the presence layer. And now we can actually like live there with almost all of the interactions we have with all humans today, which is crazy.
I read Sovereign Individual last week. And so, I'm right there with you on the dissolution of states, not to put words in your mouth, but we were talking about, borders and how to bring people together. It is interesting. Like, how do we get from here to there in a world where governments keep getting stronger? There's China, there's US, and there's militaries. And
how do we get there?
Yeah.
Is what your question.
Yeah, basically.
Your question is, how do we get there?
Yeah. Like, what happens?
So we're in a bridge generation.
Yeah.
I'm speculating.
Of course, we're all
I don't know what the future looks like.
We're all speculating. Yeah.
I wrote something similar to this to someone, and I said, I don't know, tomorrow, like, zebras could have been playing the long game and take over the human species. So, like, I might be wrong. But I think that the conversation around the next 10 years is big tech versus big government. Yes. So I think that is just beginning. Like, we're just seeing Mark Zuckerberg go to the here.
Right. If Elizabeth Warren wins, we'll be seeing a lot more of it. Yeah.
And we're just seeing, like, everyone's, fearing for their privacy, but it's been known that the United States, wants all that data for themselves.
The surveillance capitalism complaint is about capitalism, not about the surveillance part.
It's like not about the privacy, but they're making it sound like it's about the privacy. And so, China's like openly doing all these things pretty much. Yeah. And so I think that it's really about are our governments going to start working with the corporations in a way to move us to this open bordered world. So a good example is like Estonia. Estonia created a digital citizenship. You can actually just file online to become a citizen of Estonia. I'm running into a lot of, I've been going into these ocean, I'm pretty obsessed with the ocean, like I said. A lot of these smaller islands want to be big ocean countries. Wow. So they're like, we're small land, but we're big ocean. So they want to invest in the fisheries and they want to invest in.
Did you follow seasteading at all?
I followed it. I read the book. There's a book called Seasteading. I recommend it. It's amazing.
Can that work?
Yes. I think we live in a time when anything anyone imagines can be built, which is either we are impeded by our imaginations now, like we're slower on our imaginations than we used to be, so that's a bad thing, or we're just at a point in time where we've figured out the tool sets to be able to build anything. So on the seasteading, like it's very possible. There's the technology that exists today. If you think about it, cruises are an example of people living in water, like on water year round. There are people who just pay for a ticket on a cruise all year and they don't even have a house anymore. So the technology exists even if you think of it as cruise ships. But I love the idea of smaller countries accepting that they have a large digital presence. Yeah. And so starting to reinvest in those things is a really big deal. Now, we haven't even talked about AI, but AI is going to be a very important part of like building these tool sets. I don't think of it. I think AI is one of these things that's just going to be in everything, just like the internet's in everything, just like the blockchain is going to be like everything's weaving together. I read a great book called AI Superpowers that's really focuses on
China book, right?
The China book. Yep. It's China versus US. It really focuses on that, making it sound like no one else can even participate because there's so much more data in China and the United States. I think that it always ends up being about what the use case is. Yeah. Like we build tools, like a hammer can be used for a lot of different things. We end up using tools in different ways. Is it the most efficient? Is it the best? Like one AI might be really, really good for like finance. Yeah. That same AI probably won't be great for seasteading. Like I don't know if we're going to have like, and then, there might be a superpower at some point where it all bonds together, but that might just be called human species. And ideally on multiple planets. So okay, how do the original question. I want to get back to the original question because I think it's an important one. It's really about aligning incentives amongst the world. And that's what I'd say business and venture capitalists are really, really good at, where governments are really, really good about maintaining governance. Yep. And there needs to be, and I think that this is where tokens are going to play a very large role in voting. For things, marketplaces. It's about creating a marketplace for everything. Yeah. And so the technology of blockchain for governance is going to be so incredibly important. Suddenly I'm voting for, how the United States, US dollar should be deployed through like an Aragon DAO. Yeah. And like, that's exciting. Like we should have votes in a lot of different things in the government. It's a big, whatever it's called, like a black box that we don't really know about. So I think, how do we get there? We keep investing in great technology and great people. And hopefully, I believe that the picture of the world that I believe is like the most, happy is one where every person who has chosen their mission, who has discovered what their lifelong mission is enabled to carry it out. Yeah. So that is, and my mission is to enable those. Totally. And so that's been like my thing. I've chosen that is my lifelong mission, is to get better at finding the people who have chosen their mission and enable them to do it. So I think that in short, how we get to sort of like less strong, it's not even less strong governments. I'm okay with super strong governments.
But opt in or more choice, more freedom.
More choice and freedom, more vote. Yeah. I think that's going to be the thing that everyone votes for. Yeah. Everyone wants choice. Everyone wants vote. People in Venezuela aren't happy that their money is worth like 1/1 millionth of what it was last month.
without any representation or.
Yeah. And Argentina just shut down the ability to buy the US dollar for any company. And then every citizen can only own like $2,000 worth, which makes it essentially illegal in the country of Argentina. India has shut down all crypto related things. We are seeing firsthand, like we have a ticket to countries fighting back against a technology they thought was a joke. Yeah. So we're seeing the fight right now. We're in the middle of fight time.
Yep. First they laugh at you and then they...
First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And like, I think we're at fight, like they are identifying that there might be a loss.
Yeah. They've laughed at us and now they...
And then they're going to have to collaborate.
Yeah. Now they're bringing Mark Zuckerberg.
And if you fight, we don't want to collaborate as much. Like that's totally. Sort of how it works. Yeah. I think it's popular to hate on Mark Zuckerberg right now. Like, I don't really know why. He's connected more of the planet than anyone ever thought fathomable. Right. He has 2 million people actively using his platform. That is insane. Like, I think if any other country were to have, any other country wants to say that Facebook was started in their country. And like right now, we're all like mad at him. Right. And I get like there is a do good thing, but there's always friction in the process of the like growth and scale. And we're figuring out the friction points.
Totally. Yeah. The mission to enable people to choose what they want to do and technology helping do that. And it's a perfect place to close. My guest today has been Adam Draper. Adam, for the entrepreneurs and investors who want to get in touch with you about building crypto or VR projects or sharing them with you, where would you point them?
So Boost VC, we're the accelerator for sci-fi tech. We invest $500,000 into the companies that go through our program. We have 2 programs a year. Actually, we're open right now for our applications are open. And I would send them to boost.vc/apply if you want to apply. Yeah, or boost.vc just to check it out. Or follow me at Adam Draper and subscribe to my podcast.
Yeah, it's a fantastic podcast. Adam, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you. This was great.
If you're an early stage entrepreneur, we'd love to hear from you. Please hit us up at villageglobal.vc/network catalyst.